Hello and welcome to the Roundtown Recharge Podcast with your host, Danny Nicolino. On this podcast, if you're new, we help people recharge their business, their life, and just get past any hurdles and roadblocks that are currently stopping you in real estate, business, and their life. That's the focus of the podcast. And today, our big topic is to go over solving the hurdle or solving the problem behind I don't have enough money to do the next deal, or I don't have enough money to make this business work for me, or just buy that next house. So we're gonna solve that problem, and I'm gonna say problem quote unquote because I think for many people it's really just a limiting belief more than a problem. Let me ask you a question. If you say this is your issue, you don't have enough money to do the next deal. Let me ask you the question of, do you actually have a deal that you don't have the money for? Do you have a deal right now that you don't have the money for? If your answer is yes, then okay, we're going to get into that in a minute. Like that's the point of this podcast. But for those of you that are answering no, and you don't have a deal right now that you can't fund, or that you haven't actually ran into this problem, my advice is to shift that limiting belief. If you are just not looking because you just you don't think you have the money to fund the deal, if you're just not looking for deals, then that's a priority problem, or it could be a money allocation problem. If you don't think you have the money for a deal, or you aren't finding deals regularly, you probably aren't allocating money to finding deals. You aren't spending money on marketing. You aren't spending money on learning how to find deals. You're not doing any of those activities that are going to help deal flow. Deal flow is really the problem for a lot of people. They think it's a money problem, but it's really a deal flow problem. So that's going to be the topic of another podcast, but really the short answer is put some of your personal capital and efforts, and just your work and your efforts into finding more deals, ideally off market. Gives you a lot more flexibility, and can do some creative things, which we'll get into in a minute. But even if it's on the market, just spend the time and actually look for deals. So like that's if you answered no to that question. But if you do have a deal or had a deal that you couldn't fund, that's what we're going to get into here. That's the main point of this podcast. So to get into that a little bit, what kind of deals are you looking for, right? I mean, are you looking for large commercial deals? Are you in a business where you're just trying to find a duplex, triplex rental, or a single family rental? Maybe you bought 4 or 5 of them and you just can't fund the next one. You can't fund the down payment for the next one. So what do you do in that case? Like what's your next step? This is a very common problem amongst people that use all their own cash to fund their deals. So I'm not saying you're buying with all cash. I mean, if you're doing that, you're going to run out of resources really quickly. I mean, even if you make $1 million a year, 2 million, 5 million, doesn't matter what you make in a year. I mean, for most people listening to this, I mean, it's going to be under $1 million a year that you make, right? I mean, that's for 99% of America, or anywhere in the world that you're listening to this. You're probably making less than $1 million a year. So if you're using all your own resources to purchase your real estate deals, you're going to eventually run out of money. That's just math. Like the more deals you do, you're going to run out of down payment money. So the solution here is to use other people's money, people that have capital to deploy in deals. So how can you do this? There's a few different ways and a few options you have here, but just to go over, at a real high level at first, what those look like. So there's 4 big things that I would say are your next steps. So the first one, again, provided you have deal flow, right? The first one is if you do want to do the deals yourself and you don't want to bring anyone in, you don't really want to involve anybody else in these deals at all, then I would say you just need to earn more money. So I know that's easier said than done, but if you're finding deals consistently and you just can't take them down, why don't you just wholesale them? Why don't you just pass them off to another investor and you just take a couple $1,000s up to all the way up through $50,000 as a fee that you can start building extra capital to do the next deal? Because, I mean, you already funded those other deals you did, right? So if you've done one or two deals already, you funded those, you're generating capital somewhere. Maybe it's your normal day job. Maybe you have another business that you're taking the capital and deploying into real estate deals, and you're looking to fund your next one that way, and it's just taking longer than expected. So really the solution is to generate more capital. So what could you do? You could find a deal and you could wholesale it for, let's call it 10 grand. Okay. You do 10 of those, it's another 100 grand then that you have to deploy into deals. You could take one of those down, and instead of keeping it as a rental, you could flip it. You could start your flipping company, and you could make, possibly 30, 40 grand on a flip. Pretty common. Okay. So it doesn't really matter. I'm talking real estate right now. So it doesn't have to be real estate. You could do there's a lot of people who start, small rental car businesses, or driving for Lyft or Uber. I mean, like those are additional side hustles, ways to build extra cash, right? You ideally want something that's scalable, that you don't have to put a ton of time into. You can generate a lot of capital with a little bit of time. That way you can actually not just create a second job for yourself. But that's again going to be another topic for another podcast. But just to kind of bring it back, the first thing you can do is just generate more capital, right? But that really doesn't solve your problem if you're already capped out on your capital generation. And I say capped out, that's another limiting belief. You can always do more, and you just got to think bigger. Maybe just, wholesale bigger deals or whatever, or, hire people. Like there's always something you can do to generate more capital. But if that's not the route you want to go, the other options, I'm going to go through 3 of them real quick, then we'll dive deep. So the other options are to owner finance deals. So if you find a house you want to buy, you don't have the money for the down payment, but maybe the seller is willing to owner finance. So that's something we're going to dive into a little bit here in a second. You could get an equity or a JV partner on the deal. So this is someone that's going to share the deal with you. They're going to share equity with you in the deal. So they're going to share in the ups, they're going to share in the downs, and they're going to partner with you on this deal. Maybe they bring most of the money and you bring most of the sweat equity and most of the work. So typically how we structure our deals, if you do all the work, you get at least 50% of the deal. If you bring all the money, you get 50% of the deal, depending on who signs on the loan and who brings the cash, how much rehab work there is. This is all flexible, but that's just how we typically do it. So that's another way, is you can partner with people on deals. And then the third way, which is honestly probably what most people choose to do, is they just raise private money. So if you're choosing to raise private money, you can do this in the form of what would be called a hard money loan, or just a private money loan. Like there's a lot of different ways you can do this, but essentially you're just raising money from a private individual, a private investor, to take the deal down, and you're ideally forcing the appreciation on the deal, and you're able to refinance out of the private capital. And once you force the appreciation, or maybe you hold it long enough and you're able to just bring them in on as an equity partner. There's many different ways to structure it, but ideally you're raising the capital to take a deal down, and then you get to force the appreciation and refinance and pay that private capital back, and then use their money to fund the next deal. There's other ways, right? Like you can try to get big, large business lines of credit that'll help you take the next deal down. But eventually, again, you're going to be capped at your individual resources. So you can always go find more private capital. You can always find more equity partners, and you can always find a seller that's willing to owner finance. So let me dive into those 3 a little bit more. And we're probably going to break those down into different podcasts, honestly, just to dive deep and give you some more nuggets in there. But just to dive a little bit deeper than just the 10,000 foot view that we've already talked about on owner financing, there's, obviously many different ways you can structure deals like this. So I'm not going to go into all the nuances, but the biggest thing here is your goal, right, is to lower the down payment capital needed. So the biggest thing is to focus on that. There's different areas you can negotiate. So you can negotiate on the down payment, you can negotiate on the purchase price, you can negotiate on the interest rate and the amortization and essentially what the payment is per month. But those are all negotiable pieces of an owner finance deal. So your goal, if you're trying to do more deals and reduce the capital needed up front, if this is already stabilized and you don't really need a ton of rehab, then it's nice if you're able to come in at a 5% down or 10% down instead of the traditional 25% down, and then the seller just lets you borrow the money. They're not actually giving you money to fund a purchase. They're just letting you take over the property with less money down, and then they're selling the property to you over time, or maybe they're holding a mortgage back depending on how the deal's structured. But again, those are nitty-gritty details. The point here is you can acquire properties with less money down. Now, how do you find these sellers? So the key things that I've found are out-of-state owners here. Like this is the big one here is out-of-state owners, and typically the ones that have moved away from their properties. They used to live near the property and they moved away, and they still want the income, but they don't want to deal with coming back and managing the property. Now, yes, they could hire a property manager, but maybe they only have one or two properties. They don't have a full portfolio, so it doesn't really make sense. So in this case, for them, it makes sense to get that passive income from you as the buyer, and that they're owner financing the deal to. So target to out-of-state owners there. So that's one. The next one that we talked about was equity partners or JV partners, whatever you want to call them. But essentially, a JV partner here is going to fund the deal, right? So they're going to fund the purchase, whether it be the down payment or sign the loan or maybe both. And they're going to split the deal with you, maybe 50-50, maybe you create another, that's all negotiable, right? Depending on who's doing what work, how much money is required, and what that return looks like on their money. But they're going to bring the capital, you're going to do a lot of the work. Now, obviously, like in a joint venture, you should both be having some stake in the game, in my opinion. And in my opinion, you should both also, as far as capital, have some stake in the game, and also, or maybe even if it's just a little bit, right? And then also both do some of the work at least, just to make sure it's a true joint venture partnership. Because this is not a syndication, right? You're not selling a security to somebody. So that's again, this is not, and none of this is legal or tax advice or anything like that. But it's just how I practice things. But that's what you would do, is so you take the deal down that way. Some things to note: for most banks and most lenders, at least that I've experienced, you've got to, if you own more than, I think it's like around 20% equity in something, typically you're going to have to sign the loan anyways. So if that's the case, make sure you consider that in your when you split up the deal. But just those are things to consider. The third one, which we'll probably spend the most time talking about here, is raising private money. So this one is really the holy grail to doing more deals that beyond your own resources, because even though it's great to owner finance, not everyone wants to owner finance. And even though it's nice to have an equity partner because they share in the upside and the downside, you're kind of married to that person for the life of that deal, and it's not, you're not in total control of the deal. So it's really, I like having equity partners or JV partners because you disperse the risk. There's no more liability. You're not paying someone a loan. they're using their cash and they're just sharing in the deal. You could do more deals that way. I do love that strategy. However, if you only have one or two partners, it's hard to find a really, really good partner that you want to be in the life of the deal with forever until it sells. I say it's hard. It's not hard. It just requires talking to more people, meeting more people. But private money is relatively easier to find, and you're able to actually, you could go to a networking event and you could find someone who's willing to give you $100,000 pretty easily. Like this is not a difficult thing to do, to go find someone that's willing to give you $100,000. You could probably think of 5 people in your family, just in your immediate, or not immediate maybe, but close, aunts, uncles, cousins, that have retirement accounts that they would be willing to lend you $100,000, $200,000, maybe even as just $50,000 for the next deal. I'm sure you could find someone that's pretty close to you that has capital that would be willing to do this. The key here is there's 2 pieces to this. They need to trust you as a person, so they need to know you. You need to build a relationship with these people. Like this is the big key. Okay, is building a relationship. If you know someone from history, and like you've gone out with them, you've partied with them, you've gone to events with them, you've hung out with their kids, and like you're, as a family, like you guys all hang out. If it's if you're older, I don't have any kids myself, so my age group, there's not a lot of that going on. But I'm just saying, like in general, if like you are close to their family, and like close enough to be involved in their family, like they are going to trust you, right? My point here in saying all this is if someone trusts you hanging around their family, then they are going to trust you most likely to give you money, like as far as from a trust perspective. Now that's one piece of it. The other side of the coin is that you need to have the experience. So you need the experience. You need to have done deals for someone to be willing to lend you money, because they need to trust you. That's important. But if they don't trust you, then you're shit out of luck. Like nothing's going to happen there. But if they trust you and you don't have experience, well, that's a whole nother issue, because they trust you. Like say you were the cousin that always partied in college, right? They love you, they trust you, they know you'd never hurt them, but they also don't know you as the expert in real estate, right? They don't know you as that person yet. So you need to do a few deals. You need to get something under your belt where, maybe that is through owner financing, or maybe that is through having a JV partner that has some experience. Or maybe it is through wholesaling. Whatever that looks like, where you can do a few deals, gain some experience, you're going to have a lot more leverage to become someone that people are going to be willing to lend you money through, private lending. You can always do hard money lending, which is different. So essentially, you just need to qualify. Typically, a hard money lender is going to look at the asset itself and look at the deal to see, okay, hey, are you flipping this? Are we going to be able to, if we had to take the property back, could we make our money back, or at least most of it? And they're going to usually pull your credit and make sure you are a decent borrower. It's not based on credit, really. It's just based on the deal. But with that said, that's different than private money. Private money is not a traditional lender that is set up in a, they have a lender number or any of that. Like, a private lender is someone who's an investor who's willing to put money with you just to earn a return, and they're going to hold a note on the property as collateral, right? So these deals can be found with anyone. They could be found with your friends, your family. Again, like I said, you could go to any local networking event, and you're not going to want to just go around asking people if they're willing to give you money. The first thing you want to do is you're going to want to build relationships with these people. Take them out to dinner if you can. Add some value to them first. Ideally, you want to be able to add value first before you ask for anything. But post all the time. Don't be a secret agent. Go post what you're doing. Post the deals you've done and show your credibility. Show that you have that experience and then go build those relationships and build trust with these people. And if you have trust and you have experience, you have everything you need to raise private money, which means, to bring us back to the beginning of the podcast, the main topic, I don't have enough money to do the next deal. Well, if you have done deals and you have experience and you know people that trust you and they have money, you can make this happen. There are nitty-gritty details. There are, good ways to present these things out, but those are all learnable. Those are all skills that you can learn pretty easily just by looking things up online or asking questions to mentors that have done this before. If you're in my mastermind group and ask a question like this, you're going to have 5-10 people respond to you instantly with their pitch deck or whatever they've used in the past. So get connected with the right people. Get connected with people in your local market. Go to networking events. Talk to people as much as you can and build those relationships, build that trust, and do deals and get that deal flow. Those are the things that are going to get you to that next deal. So if you say, I don't have enough money to do the next deal, you're either not finding deals, not finding good deals, not building relationships, or all three, or any of the above, right? So that's how you're going to get over that hurdle. Thank you for listening through this podcast. This is, again, the Roundtown Recharge Podcast with your host, Danny Nicolino. And until next time, enjoy.